The weather is taking a turn, so I think we're probably going to be indoors for a while. We got a couple of tips from a viewer on last week's video. We always appreciate those. And I think what we're going to do next is pull that rear fender off again and mount the fuel tank or gas tank. The gas tank has a mounting hole in it along with that goes into that flat area on the inner fender, and that'll give us two locating points. And the other thing that we was suggested and simultaneously we discovered is that the fender attaches with wood screws, yeah, believe it or not, up through the inner fender into the new wood that we just put on. So those side rails are what the wood screw goes into. And actually what we did when we had the fender lined up pretty close to where we thought it should go, we shined our light up through the holes inside the fender, and lo and behold, there was a small hole, you know, number 10 screw or something like that, not very big, up through the inner fender and ostensibly into the wood behind it. So what we're going to have to do, what you want to do is make sure that that screw hole goes through that fender and the fender well goes into the center of that wood structure. You certainly don't want the screw coming right at either the inside edge or the outside edge, and it'll just splinter out the wood. That's not very effective. So we're going to have to determine exactly where the inside edge of that wood is, or the inside edge, yeah, the inside and the outside, the center of that wood is, and that'll help us center up our fender. One of the things we had to do, we haven't done, in order to really install the fuel tank properly, we had to get our new rubber strips bored out so that we could install them on the back board. So we've gone ahead and poked some holes through the rubber strips, and we've got to take our little Dremel tool and bore those holes out so that the screws go through there real nice, and then we'll go ahead and attach these strips to the back wood bulkhead, and then we can set the fuel tank in place. So that's next. Pulled the fender off and took note of the hole that the screw goes through. There is a hole right here. There's a little tiny hole just next to it, and that little tiny hole right there misses the wood. So the wood is right here in this larger hole right here. So that's going to be one of the screw mounting holes, the wood screws. It's going to go up through the wood and hold the fender on. And we kind of located that by putting our fender where we thought it ought to go and then shining a light through the holes, and it really corresponds to that mark right there. I mean, initially I suppose I thought that was just a hole rusted in there. And the next area I believe is going to be right here, is there's going to be a screw goes up through there. So that's two of the screw holes plus the two at the back here once we get the gas tank in, and then we're just going to have to sort out the leading edge of the fender. But at least now I think we can get some sense of where this fender is supposed to be. We went ahead and mounted our rubber strips on the back bulkhead and set our fuel tank, petrol tank, gas tank in place. And what that does, it gives us another locating hole for the rear fender. Now see, we've got a broken stud, bolt, whatever in here, so we're going to have to work on getting that out without drilling a hole in the side of the fuel tank. That ought to be interesting. But we can use the top one to set the depth on our drill so that we don't drill all the way in there, and hopefully we get some kind of an easy out or something in there and get that broken bolt out of there. So the rear fender bolts here and hopefully over here, and then there's a cover panel goes on here. The big thing that we don't have now is there's a rubber cushion or biscuit that goes in between that outer panel and the fender, and we don't have that, so we'll have to get that. I think in the meantime I'm going to see if I can make up a stud, perhaps, which is probably what ought to be in there anyway, that'll stick out and just serve as an alignment pin or dowel, so that we can line up these two holes, and that'll give us two holes in the fender and should really dictate pretty much where the rest of it goes as far as the circumference. And then what we've got to do is set the depth in and out, and like I said, we have a mark, existing mark on the fender from the piping or welts, whatever you want to call it, left a mark there where it was, so we'll use that as our reference. We're going to have to get some of that piping, welting, whatever it is, and see how that goes. I suspect that we should put that up in where it goes be up in here before we finish nail everything. I don't know, I may end up with nails to hold the fender on, and then nails to, hold the side panel on, and then nails to hold the welting on. And I mean, hopefully you can have one nail do two jobs, but we'll have to sort that out. We've got to get an order in, got an order of little stuff that we need to get, so probably time to get after it, spend some more money.